Nnamdi Kanu, the detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, has partially accepted the judgment of Nigeria Supreme Court of Justice with compelling questions over the judgment that overruled the order of the lower federal court of appeal that he should be released unconditionally as he has no case to answer. Nnamdi Kanu's reactions to the Supreme Court judgment delivered last Friday in Abuja was made known by his lawyer, Barrister Ifeanyi Ejiofor, after the weekly routine visit to the detained Biafra agitation leader at the Department of State Services (DSS) custody. Barrister Ifeanyi Ejiofor's statement reads in quotes below thus: "Today, our legal team, ably led by the erudite professor of law, Chief Michael Zekome, SAN, visited Onyenu Mazi Nnamdi Kanu at the SSS headquarters Abuja, where he is being illegally held in solitary confinement to formally brief him on the outcome of the Supreme Court judgment, delivered in his matter on the 15th day of December 2023. Onyenu was fully briefed on the salient findings of the Apex Court, which pronouncements 1. Unequivocally condemned in strong terms the illegal invasion of Onyenu Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's ancestral home in Afara Oko, Ibeku, Umuahia, Abia State by the Nigerian security agencies on the 14th day of September 2017, when numerous innocent civilians were murdered in cold blood. 2. Condemned and declared as unlawful the consequent revocation of Onyenu Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's bail by the trial court, which order was granted on application filed by the same federal government that had through its security agencies invaded Onyenu Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's house, even when he was on court bail, and awaiting to appear in court on a given date for trial to commence. 3. Condemned the kidnap of Onyenu Mazi Nnamdi Kanu from Kenya by the Nigerian security agents and his subsequent extraordinary rendition to Nigeria. 4. Roundly condemned the illegality of the actions of the federal government in the use of brute force to kidnap a citizen from a foreign land without first subjecting the person to extradition proceedings. The eventual verdict of the Supreme Court was conveyed to Onyenu Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, and he expressed reservations on the outcome. However, Onyenu elected to accept this outcome because of the finality of the Supreme Court decisions, and not because they are infallible, but because they are infallible for the fact that the Supreme Court is the final court in the land. Nevertheless, in accepting this verdict, Onyenu specifically requested that the following compelling questions be put out publicly to the discerning members of the public, who are keenly following the trajectory of this case, to wit: did the decision of the Supreme Court, which substantially sanctioned the federal government's illegal act of Onyenu Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's abduction and extraordinary rendition to Nigeria, effectively repeal the following Nigerian laws which were all cited in our brief before the Supreme Court? 1. Section 15 of the Extradition Act Capi 25 Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, which provides as follows: where in accordance with the law of any country within the Commonwealth or in pursuance of an extradition agreement between Nigeria and another country, whether within the Commonwealth or not, any person accused of or unlawfully at large after conviction of an offense committed within the jurisdiction of Nigeria is surrendered to Nigeria by the country in question, then, so long as he has not had a reasonable opportunity to return into that country, that person shall not be detained, whether under this act or otherwise, tried or otherwise dealt with in Nigeria for or in respect of an offense committed by him before his surrender to Nigeria other than the offense for which he was surrendered, or any lesser offense which may be proved by the facts on which its surrender was granted, or b. any other offense, being one corresponding to an offense described in Section 20 of this Act, of the same nature as the offense for which he was surrendered. Provided that a person falling within this section shall not be detained or tried for an offense by virtue of paragraph B of this section without the prior consent of the country surrendering him. 2. Article 12(4) of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, Ratification and Enforcement, Act Capi 9, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, which provides as follows: a non-national legally admitted in a territory of a state party to the present charter may only be expelled from it by virtue of a decision taken in accordance with the law. The above laws, for the avoidance of any doubt, are all Nigerian laws on extradition and extraordinary rendition of citizens from foreign lands. other international instruments and conventions to which Nigeria is a state party and bound by, which make similar provisions include the OAU Convention on the Prevention and Combating of Terrorism, Principles and Guidelines on Human and People's Rights while Countering Terrorism in Africa, and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Public perspective positions on the possible implication of the Supreme Court's judgment of the 15th of December 2023 on the above laws will further demonstrate the grave prejudice Okonedo Mazi Nnamdi Kanu has suffered in the hands of the federal government of Nigeria. Okonedo seized the opportunity offered by the visit to remind Ezigbo Umuchineke that he is not broken by whatever situation he is faced with, but they should be doubly assured that he shall emerge victorious in the end. Okonedo once again thanked Ezigbo Umuchineke for your prayers and love, even as he encouraged all to remain focused and keep their eyes on the ball. Okonedo enjoined his followers to continue to conduct themselves in peaceful manner as they have always done. It would be recalled that Nigeria Apex Court, Supreme Court of Justice, had ruled that the detained leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, has case to answer, adding, "There is no existing law in Nigeria that stops a court of law from entertaining trial of a suspect simply because the suspect's rights were violated by the prosecutor." The Supreme Court in its ruling last Friday set aside a judgment by the lower court that dismissed the terrorism charges against the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, in October 2022. According to Punch newspaper correspondent, the Apex Court held that the Court of Appeal was wrong and that the trial court couldn't try him because the prosecution violated his rights. Excerpts of the newspaper correspondent report reads thus below. In the judgment prepared by Justice Garba Mohammed, the court condemned the invasion of Kanu's residence, declaring it irresponsible. The court held that there is no law in the country stopping a trial based on the violation of the rights of a suspect. Mohammed said, if the police should destroy the house of a suspect to obtain exhibits, should that divest the court against entertaining the offense? His remedy should be the way of civil proceeding. Proceedings can't be stopped on account of the violation of the rights of the suspect. That is not our law for now. We decided not to go with the Court of Appeal. Though we condemn the violation of his rights, Nigeria must redeem its image and adhere to the rule of law. If a person has been granted bail, why did you invade his house? That is irresponsible. You shouldn't blame him for. Warning. No legislation in the country restricts the trial court of the jurisdiction to go ahead with Kanu's case despite the illegal action of the FG. The law must take its course. The Court of Appeal was wrong that the trial court couldn't try him. The appeal is allowed, and the cross appeal is dismissed. Kanu was first arrested in 2015 under the administration of former Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari. He was subsequently granted bail in April 2017 and fled the country after an invasion of his home in Afara Uku, near Umuahia, Abia State, by the Nigerian military in September 2017. Kanu was re-arrested in Kenya and brought back to Nigeria in June 2021. He was arraigned before the Federal High Court in Abuja on 4 charges of treasonable felony, conspiracy to commit treasonable felony, illegal importation of radio equipment, and defamation of former President Muhammadu Buhari. The charges were later withdrawn by the former Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, SAN, who replaced them with a fresh 14-count charge bordering on terrorism and membership in a proscribed group, among others. The court, however, reduced the charges to 7. The Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja on October 13, 2022, held that how Kanu was rendition to the country violated the country's extradition treaty and was also a breach of his fundamental human rights. The appellate court also struck out the terrorism charges filed against Kanu by the Nigerian government and ordered his release from the DSS facility. The FG, through the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation, appealed the court ruling and subsequently obtained an order staying the execution of the court judgment at the Supreme Court. Kanu, through his lawyers, filed an appeal against the stay of execution order at the Apex Court on November 3, 2022. Displeased by the verdict of the appellate court, the FG filed an appeal at the Supreme Court. United Nations Convention Against Corruption, UNCAC, has recognized and appreciated the rising profile of assets recovery in Nigeria. UNCAC, according to Reverend David Ugolo, the World Vice President of UNCAC Coalition and the Executive Director of Africa Network for Environment and Economic Justice, ANEJ, recognized Nigeria as the world leading asset recovery at its 2023 resolution after a week-long meetings of Conference of the States Parties to the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, COS10, held in Atlanta, United States, between December 11 and 15, 2023 with more than 300 civil society organizations and almost 1,000 human rights activists in attendance. David Ugolo, who led other ANEJ team members to the meeting in Atlanta, USA, in a message of commendation issued and made available on Monday, said, "The UNCAC resolution is a big victory for everyone working for Nigeria assets to be recovered and given back to the country." In quotes, David Ugolo said, "I am particularly elated about Nigeria's rising profile as a leading country in asset recovery and beneficial ownership transparency of legal persons and legal arrangements in the UN. This is coming after intense and difficult rounds of negotiations, which commenced in Vienna in November, and to the glory of God, the draft resolution on beneficial ownership transparency was agreed in the Committee of Whole, now adopted as a resolution of COPS10. This is big victory for those of us working in the sector." The resolution highlights a significant step forward in the global fight against corruption. The commitment to enhancing beneficial ownership transparency aligns with our mission to hold those engaging in corrupt acts accountable. The conference, in its resolution on enhancing the use of beneficial ownership information to strengthen asset recovery, underscores the crucial role of beneficial ownership transparency in combating corruption and addressing the misuse of legal entities for concealing illicit proceeds. We are encouraged that the conference recognizes that the loss of resources caused by corruption, including complex cases such as those involving multiple national jurisdictions and vast quantities of assets, which constitutes a substantial proportion of the resources of states, and particularly has a negative impact on developing countries like Nigeria. We are particularly happy legal persons and legal arrangements, and, as necessary, consider maintaining historical records that is searchable by domestic competent authorities, including as appropriate, financial intelligence units and tax administrations, in accordance with domestic law. Civil society and the media should have access to updated information on the platform. To promote and combat the scourge called corruption, we urge state parties to cooperate closely with one another, bearing in mind the need to provide one another the widest measures of international cooperation, in accordance with the United Nations Convention Against Corruption and domestic law, to facilitate the efficient exchange of adequate, accurate and up-to-date beneficial ownership information in a timely manner, and where appropriate and feasible, through the use of digital and innovative technologies, including to facilitate the recovery and return of assets, Ugolo noted. He called on state parties to adopt a multipurpose approach to beneficial ownership transparency through appropriate mechanisms that provide access to adequate, accurate and up-to-date beneficial ownership information on legal persons and legal arrangements in order to facilitate the investigation and prosecution of cases of corruption and the identification, recovery and return of stolen assets in accordance with the Convention and the fundamental principles of their domestic law. Recall that Section 119 of the Companies and Allied Matters Act, CAMA, 2020, in conjunction with the Persons with Significant Control Regulations, PSC Regulations, 2022, requires companies, limited liability partnerships, LLPs, and by extension, foreign exempted companies under Section 80 of CAMA 2020 and government-owned entities in Nigeria to disclose details of their beneficial owners and those with significant control over the company. This is in line with global efforts to combat money laundering, terrorist financing, and other illegal activities. Section 119(3) mandates the Corporate Affairs Commission, the CAC, to maintain a register of persons with significant control, also known as the Beneficial Ownership Register, the register, in the relevant entities. Meanwhile, during the week in Atlanta, ANEJ team led by the Executive Director, Reverend David Ugolo, participated in a breakfast meeting with the U.S. government officials amongst other civil society leaders from countries facing high risk of corruption on the margins of the coast to the UNCAC. The meeting was hosted by the American Bar Association Rule of Law Initiative, ABAROI, as part of their Justice Sector Training Research and Coordination (Just Track) program in cooperation with the U.S. Department of Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs (INL) and Office of the Coordinator on Global Anti-Corruption. Earlier, the Vice President of UNCAC Coalition Board and Executive Director, ANIJ, Reverend David Ugolo interviewed Matthias Huter, Managing Director, UNCAC Coalition and the Managing Director shared insights on the 10th session of the Conference of the State Parties of the UNCAC. The Conference of the States Parties, COS, is the main decision-making body of the UN Convention Against Corruption, UNCAC. Also at the meeting, Nigeria Justice Minister restates Nigeria's commitment to fight against corruption, money laundering at the global rally. The leader of the delegation of Nigeria and Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Honorable Lateef Fagbemi, expressed Nigeria's commitment at the 10th Conference of States Parties to the UNCAC held at the Georgia World Congress Center in Atlanta, United States. The Justice Minister assured the civil societies of Nigeria unwavering commitment to the fight against corruption, money laundering and illicit financial flows at the global rally of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, UNCAC.
So Matthias, how do you feel about the COS 10?
Great. Great in terms of civil society participation. We have more than 330 organizations from civil society are participating here. We have more than 900 activists from all over the world registered. So in terms of civil society participation, this COS is a big step in the right direction. And now civil society here is fighting for governments to commit to new, stronger resolutions that would really move the anti-corruption agenda forward. For example, on beneficial ownership transparency, where Nigeria is tabling and leading a resolution to advance the transparency of who ultimately owns and controls companies and legal entities. We're trying to advance the transparency of public contracting, the protection of whistleblowers, the links between gender and corruption, between organized crime and corruption. Also, we're trying to raise awareness for victims of corruption and get commitments on the redress to victims of corruption. So a lot of efforts from civil society to move the agenda forward. Too early to say how successful we are, but there's lots of energy and lots of great collaboration from activists all around.
What is your expectation on the Atlanta Declaration?
That is, right now we're on the Tuesday, so the declaration is finalized by the Friday. It's too early to tell. It's very politicized. Also, we're here in the United States, and there are some countries that are undermining negotiations because of political motivations and their relationship to the United States. So it's too early to tell what we will get in terms of substance, but the focus of the host country Atlanta Declaration is on accountability. So we are trying to emphasize also the role of political financing transparency there and the accountability. We're trying to focus on the role of civil society. So many important issues that we hope will be covered by that.
By press unit, Justice Bayo Taiwo of the Oyo State High Court, sitting in Ibadan, on Thursday, December 14, 2023, convicted and sentenced Olaniyan Gbenga Amos to 75 years imprisonment for multiple investment fraud. He was convicted alongside his firm, Detroit Heritage Investment Limited. They were prosecuted on 35 count charges by the Ibadan Zonal Command of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, bordering on obtaining by false pretenses, contrary to Section 1(1)(a), and punishable under Section 1(3) of the Advance Fee Fraud and Other Fraud-Related Offences Act 2006. Count 35 of the charge reads that Olaniyan Gbenga Amos and Detroit Heritage Investment Limited on or about the 20th of February, 2020, at Ibadan, within the jurisdiction of this honorable court, with intent to defraud obtained the sum of 1,540,000 naira, 1,540,000 only, from Akinabi Kasim Dada, when you falsely represented to him that the money was meant for registration and investment with Crime Alert Security security network with the promise of 30% return on investment in 6 weeks, 30 working days, which representation you knew to be false and thereby committed an offense of obtaining money under false pretense contrary to Section 1(1)(a) and punishable under Section 1(3) of the Advanced Fee Fraud and Other Fraud-Related Offences Act 2006. Another charge reads that Olaniyan Gbenga Amos and DETORID Heritage Investment Limited on or about 27th of August 2020 at Ibadan, within the jurisdiction of this honorable court, with intent to defraud obtained the sum of 170,000 naira, 170,000 naira, only from Alhaji Mukaila Odunayo, when you falsely represented to him that the money is meant for registration and investment with Crime Alert Security Network with the promise of 30% return on investment in 6 weeks, 30 working days, which representations you knew to be false and thereby committed an offense of obtaining money under false pretense contrary to Section 1(1)(a) and punishable under Section 1(3) of the Advanced Fee Fraud and Other Fraud-Related Offences Act 2006. The defendant pleaded not guilty to the charges when they were read to him. In view of his plea, EFCC counsel, Sanusi Galadanchi opened the case on February 17, 2022 and called 6 witnesses, tendered as exhibits and closed the case on January 24, 2023. At the end of the prosecution's case, the defendant filed a no case submission, which was overruled by the court. Consequently, the defendant opened and closed his case by calling 3 witnesses. Thereafter, Justice Taiwo reserved judgment in the matter till December 14, 2023. At the resumption of the trial on Thursday, December 14, 2023, Justice Taiwo convicted and sentenced the defendant to 15 years imprisonment on each of counts 27, 32, 33, 34, and 35 but discharged and acquitted the defendant on counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 28, 29, 30 and 31 respectively. Furthermore, the court ordered that the sentence should run concurrently and the defendant should also restitute the victims. Amos has 3 other ongoing trials before federal and state high courts in Ibadan, Oyo State. The convict's journey to the correctional center began when he was arrested and arraigned before Justice Bayo Taiwo on December 14, 2021 by the EFCC. He swindled several individuals through fake investment ventures that led to the loss of money to the tune of over 1 billion naira by investors. Amos deliberately reneged to meet up with the agreements he made with his investors by not paying the agreed return on investment to those who invested in Crime Alert Security Network, a security investment program. Under the umbrella of his firm, Views Exclusive Rights Press Unit, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, December 19, 2023. Nigeria Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa has said that the war against insecurity in the country is going to be slow because a lot of people are benefiting immensely from the security challenges. General Musa stated this during Channel's television Sunrise Daily Live program on Tuesday morning. General Musa, who connected to the live program via video link, said that the Nigerian military has dealt decisively with the Boko Haram terrorists, but the insurgents have moved from their religion ideology to economic warfare. Adding, a lot of people are aiding them because they are benefiting immensely from what they are doing. The Chief of Defense Staff concluded that anyone aiding any form of criminality will now be classified as one of them. General Musa canvassed for a good salary structure for Nigeria soldiers, emphasizing that some Nigeria soldiers' salaries in a month is not up to 50,000 naira. When asked if he's able to measure whether or not Nigeria making progress on any of the war fronts, the Chief of Defense Staff said it's going to be slow because we are dealing with people that are benefiting immensely from what they are doing. Advocating for better accommodation welfare for Nigeria soldiers, General Musa said, if today all these operations are over and we have to go back to the barracks, there won't be enough barracks for us. To ensure that both within and outside, Nigerians are protected. I dream that a soldier will have an accommodation and be able to say, this is my home, this is my barracks. Meanwhile, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, urged Nigerians to be careful with their words and actions in order not to demoralize the troops of the Nigerian army. The CBS reiterated that the recent bombing by the Nigerian army in the Tondubiri community in Kaduna State was accidental, urging Nigerians to understand that the incident was not deliberate. We understand that generally, everybody feels bad. We actually feel bad also. Anytime we have mistakes, we take ownership and we feel extremely bad about it, especially when we lose our own troops in the war. We just want Nigerians to understand that the incident was never deliberate. We will never deliberately target our citizens. Our mandate is to protect innocent Nigerians, and we'll continue to do that. It is unfortunate that out of the 99% successes that we've had, this one that we had has given us a lot of negative responses. But we know Nigerians want success, we are succeeding. The federal government has set up a committee that will look into it. We know at the end of it the truth will come out and everybody will really understand that it was definitely a mistake. While stating that justice will be served to anyone found culpable after the committee has made their findings, General Musa stated that Nigerians should not demoralize the troops by their words and actions. He said, we should not by our actions, inactions, utterances demoralize our troops. These guys stay awake so that we can sleep. I see a lot of people talking. It is easier for you to say that they made a mistake, they are not doing well. But what is the option? If they pull out from these locations, what happens? We will not even have a country. So for them to have stayed, slept in the darkness, in the sun, rainfall, dust and everything, just to ensure that me and you are able to sleep and do our normal routine, I think we should give them some accolades and some respect. General Musa, the accidental bombing incident occurred around 10 p.m. after bandits killed some of the troops.
Well, we still have with us the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa. General, it's really good to see you with us this morning. I know that you've had quite a number of engagements with the National Assembly. You appeared before them on a number of occasions. One of them also has to do with budgets and asking for more funds to support the work of the Nigerian military. I'm looking at all of the challenges that we're currently facing from the east to the west, from north to south. Are you able to measure in concrete terms, whether or not we're making progress on any of the fronts of the wars that we're currently fighting?
Yeah, thank you very much. We are actually making progress. It's going to be slow. It's going to be slow because we are dealing with people that are benefiting immensely from what they are doing. Most of it is economic. When the Boko Haram incident started, it was ideological. But now that we've defeated them, we've pushed them down so much, it is economic. And because we have a group of Nigerians that patronize these individuals because they make so much money, and you can see the process they make from kidnappings, from abductions, and from all this stuff. So, and I always said that Nigerians must take ownership of our challenges. It is only when we do that that we can win this battle. Let those trading with them, supporting them, the logisticians as we call them, let them stop. We have a lot of individuals that fund them, that give them this. And those are aspects that we need to be able to checkmate. The kinetic effort is ongoing. We're doing so much and we're achieving a lot of success. Just a few days ago, we've taken out a lot of them. These things don't actually come out. And we don't want to just run to the media as if we are making... what happened? We're just trying to make... we're not trying to push these efforts to make it look as if we are campaigning. It's not a campaign. This is a military campaign that we're doing. And it is important for Nigerians to take ownership of it. We're succeeding and we'll continue to do better. We're hopeful that the budget, when released, when we get the funds, we'll be able to get the much needed equipment that we need. We're leveraging a lot on the moral aspect of it that will actually ginger the troops to want to do more. And especially on the issue of Nigerians, also encouraging the men. I mean, we have seen other countries when military men come into airports, how they are being applauded. They get first-class treatments wherever they go to. When they go to buy things, they get rebate. We don't get all those things in Nigeria, and yet we're doing such services. We're not saying that everybody should give us everything that we need, but I think we should be considered, and the troops deserve commendation. I have told you as a commander, my greatest pain is when I have to face the family of my either officer or soldier to tell them they lost their breadwinner. It is painful. You go back with nightmares when you close your eyes. Nigerians should understand that these people have their families all over. Just the way we're enjoying with our, now it's holiday period. A lot of people are on holidays, have traveled abroad. We don't have that luxury. Most times you don't get to see your family all over this period. These are sacrifices they make, and I think we should look at the aspect of trying to commend them.
In the communication, what we are telling our nationals, I mean, for some people to be supporting secessionist tendencies, as you have said, against the unity of the country, I think that's very concerning. But I'd like you to speak, if you want, you may speak to that, but I'm very concerned about the welfare of your men spread all over the nation. There are those who believe that the military has been spread so thin and consequently unable to really do some of the primary functions for which it is called according to the Constitution. What are the challenges that you are aware that your men are having in terms of their welfare so that they can give their hearts and soul to the services that they have to offer to Nigeria?
Okay. If you look at the Constitution, our primary responsibility is the territorial integrity. But if you look at the territorial integrity, it is implied that charity begins at home. We cannot be protecting the territory and the home front is on fire and then sit back and watch. And our training is such that we train even on police duties. So when people tell us it is not our responsibility, yes, it's not our primary responsibility, but we have a responsibility to ensure that both within and outside, Nigerians are protected. And that's exactly what we're doing. Now, I mentioned the other time the issue of welfare. Over the past few, we have, on average, the armed forces recruit over 15,000 personnel, both officers and soldiers, into the system. We are not building new barracks. We know efforts we have, the budget has captured some of it. But we need to do more. We need to renovate the old ones because they've been there for ages, so that we can fix them. My dream is for every officer and soldier to have an accommodation that he can look up and say, look, this is my own, this is my barracks. We trained a lot because of the operations we are conducting. A lot of the officers and soldiers are out there in the field. If today all these operations are over and we have to go back to the barracks, there won't be enough barracks for us. The issue of ration cash allowance where we feed, like I've informed you, anytime we're on operations, I, as a general, I'm being fed on 1,200 per day with my soldiers. From the first general, appreciate the fact that they have not been forgotten and their efforts have been appreciated.
About I know that you have spoken in some area, some forum, where you spoke about how the commentary that came through from Nigerians about the Tunumbiri bombing somewhat affected the army. But several others thought they were pointing those things out to ensure that, it doesn't happen again and the right things are done. So if you speak about that, did it really affect the morale of the troops? And could you also tell us if there's an update on the investigation of the matter?
Thank you very much. We understand that generally everybody feels bad. We actually feel bad also. Anytime we have mistakes, we take ownership, and we feel extremely very bad about it, especially even when we lose our own troops in war. We just want Nigerians to understand that the incident was never deliberate. We will never deliberately target our citizens. Our mandate is to protect Nigerians, innocent Nigerians, and we'll continue to do that. And we have continued to do that. It's unfortunate that out of the 99 successes we've had, this one that we had has given us a lot of negative responses. But we know Nigerians want success, and we are succeeding. The federal government has set up a committee that will look into it. We don't want to make comments about what has happened, but we know at the end of it, the truth will come out, and then everybody will really understand that it was definite troops were killed. And so we're actually monitoring the movement around the area. And unfortunately, this other activity happened 10 p.m. at night, which was very strange. But like I said, mistakes were made. We'll make amends. Just for Nigerians to understand, the armed forces of Nigeria is solidly behind the federal government solidly behind Nigeria. Our mandate is to defend democracy, and we'll continue to do that. So nobody should have any fear. We'll take amends after the committee has come up. We'll take correction. Anybody that is found to be culpable will face the music. But like I said, we should not, by our actions, inactions, or trances, demoralize our troops. These guys stay awake so that we can sleep. I see a lot of people talking. It is easier for you to sit back and say they made a mistake, they're not doing well, and this. What is the option? If they pull out from these locations, what happens? We will not even have a country. So for them to have stayed, slept in the darkness, in the sun, in the rainfall, in dust, and everything, just to ensure that me and you are able to sleep, wake up, go to our office,